third period math, fourth period English, fifth period protecting the digital future. Hello, I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you into episode 219 of The Checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. Where are the guardians of tomorrow's digital landscape? At least some of them are in a small, rural high school outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll talk to the guy who's teaching them on this edition of The Checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. The people protecting the networks of tomorrow are in high school today, and they're learning how to protect the networks of tomorrow today. Robert Speciale is the CT Cybersecurity teacher at Indian Springs High School outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. He was an IT guy who became a teacher who's now teaching high school kids how to be pros in cybersecurity. What are they learning? How'd that happen? And what's such a big program doing in such a small school? Robert joins us to tell us more. So as I just said in your introduction, you teach cybersecurity to high school kids. I'm wondering if you can run through the program for us, what it is you guys are running there.
Absolutely. So I get to teach a 3-year program of study that is considered a career and technical ed program, or CTE, in cybersecurity. That's designed to give kids what they need to go directly into the workforce after high school in information technology, or continue their studies into college, university, and leverage that information and use that towards a degree in some computer science or information technology related field. Year one is basically the basics, like really teaching the kids to get them prepared to take the CompTIA A+ certification exam, which is all basic hardware, CPU, RAM, what's a motherboard, like that kind of stuff. Intro to installing operating systems and configuring them correctly, whether it be Windows. We touch on Mac OS a bit. We touch on iOS a little bit as well, and Android. And as well as introductory networking concepts. What's an IP address? What does it do? How does it work? Why, when you connect to Wi-Fi, how does that actually happen? It's not just magic, that type of stuff. Year two, we get into malware basics and ethical hacking and some cyber forensics, where we do kind of labs where we show kids a little bit, taking the knowledge they took in year one and applying it a bit more in year two, and where we have some fakes, like hacking type of scenarios to not just show how to offensively do stuff, but then how to protect against what they just did and take that type of approach to it. And then in year three, we prepare the students for the Network Plus certification exam from CompTIA, which is more intermediate and higher level networking concepts, design, deep dive into protocols, how it all, the nuts and bolts of that, how that works. And at the end of the 3 years, they get to take a state-given exam where they'll get a special, stamp on their diploma to show that they are career and ready. And interwoven in that curriculum, one thing I forgot to mention would be we also go over workforce readiness skills, how to write a resume, how to do an interview, how to be responsible going to a job, like that kind of content as well. So, and that's what I get to do every day, and it's fantastic.
I'm curious, cloud computing, because a lot of times stuff that we cover here on the checklist, half the time it's about some cloud thing, and we always hear it's because the cloud was misconfigured. Are you guys doing cloud computing as well, or is that something they're going to pick up down the road?
That is going to probably be something they pick up on down the road, although they use it, manipulate it. We talk about it, and we discuss, what's the difference between cloud computing as well as, if you just have a file server, and why those two things are different, for instance, But also within the curriculum that we use to teach, they're using virtual servers. The curriculum that I use when we do these labs, it all works within like a browser window that's running a VM of Windows 12 server or Linux or something like that, where that's how they get to do these labs. So they actually get to interact with it, see it break. And sometimes I take that teaching opportunity to say, hey, this broke. Do you know why? And actually do that and use that as a teaching moment to defer from the fact that, what we're supposed to be doing doesn't work right now. So
it's funny. It's like if you were in an electrician school and, the power went out, right. You can wait for the power to come back on and you can go, all right, what do we think happened?
Right, exactly. So those teaching moments are the best moments, actually, to be honest with you. So I enjoy that.
So when we were talking about you being on the show, you said you teach in a small rural school, outside of the Las Vegas area, and that a lot of the kids that you teach haven't even been exposed to anything like this. I'm curious, I mean, if they're coming in not quite sight unseen, but I mean, if this isn't something that they, deal with on the regular, what makes them want to go into it?
That is a fantastic question. So I think one of the things that is very true in our modern education society is kids are technology natives. They already have that built in, able to be an intermediate user at a way younger age. So there's a level of interest there that without programs like mine that have started to become prevalent over the last, like, say, 4 or 5 years, went unnoticed or went unleveraged in education. So I try and leverage that by proposing to have those kids say, hey, you know how to use your device really well. You know some things about technology. Would you like to explore that on a little bit of a deeper level? And then we could take that knowledge and then advertise to them. Now you could take that knowledge and bring it, once again, either right into the working world or right into college or whatever they want to do with it, whether even they choose to go to the military, but they have that knowledge going into it and they could specialize in that. And that's what we try and kind of promote is say, hey, if you're really interested, you can take this from something that's more than just a hobby and make it something that is something that you can do.
Okay, so you've got kids then, I mean, and it makes sense. You've got kids who are used to smartphones. You've got kids who are used to computers. I'm wondering, are you having to almost recruit to say, you can also look under the hood? I mean, are kids coming in thinking, I want to know how this works. I want to know how to protect. I want to know how to have a career in, or are they, playing with their phone and you're over on the side going, you're pretty good at the UI. Why don't we talk about what's underneath?
I think it's a little bit of both. But, coming from a small rural school, I will tell you, I could pretty much name every child in the building. We have, our student community is 240 kids, pre-kindergarten through 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
And although it's tiny. We're not talking about a big school. And although the elementary is a separate, and I'm using air quotes, school than the middle school, which is separate than the high school, and you'll learn in a little bit when we talk about how the program wound up there, I used to teach 5th grade. So the kids that were in my 5th grade class are high schoolers now. I have an in already. I know these kids. They know me. They trust that when I tell them, if you have an interest in technology, you can take it further, it has a little bit of a higher value to them. They say, well, Mr. Speciale said it, and he hasn't led me wrong before. Let me go explore this.
Right.
And the other thing, too, is they could take the class for a year, and if it's not for them, they can go do something else. But they'll still be the wiser for it because they'll still have just that little bit. Even if they just do it 1 year, they'll have just that little bit higher of understanding of how technology truly works, and they'll appreciate it in whatever career field that they wind up, doing later on in life.
So you've got year 1 and year 2 students right now, but you just outlined for me a 3-year course. I'm assuming that means that this program is new. First of all, is that right? And second, under 300 kids, how did your school end up with this program?
All right, so I'm going to give you as best I can, the TLDR of how all this happened, because it's a funny story, and it's a good story, and it's one that I try and use with my students to show them that they could accomplish great things. So it is true, we're a small school. We are only in year 2. We just started this. At one point, I had worked in technology for quite some time. I had worked as a network admin. I did systems administration, desktop support, some project management in a lot of different industries, but worked in technology. And I have 3 kids. I have an older daughter who's now a junior in high school, and I have now 12-year-old twins, boy-girl twins, that go to this school. That my twins actually are in middle school in this school here. And when my wife found out we were pregnant with the twins, my lifestyle working in technology just did not work. I was on a plane every week. I was on call 24 hours a day, and just I was not around for my kids. I had always wanted to be a teacher. It was something I wanted to do when I was younger, and kind of botched the whole college thing when I was in my out of high school way back in the day. And so what we did was I put on the Mr. Mom hat, and I stayed home with the twins, and I went back to school. I went and got my degree in elementary ed from University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, and landed a job at Indian Springs. Now, I didn't mention this yet. My wife actually teaches there as well. So I got the job where she works, and I was in the 5th grade class. It validated my life choices. I was actually awarded one of the new educators of the year for that year. So I banged out rookie of the year. So that was kind of nice, and told me that I made the right decision. After a couple of years teaching fifth grade, my principal's like, you worked in IT for over 10 years. You can get a business and industry license, and we can get this program in. And that was a key moment, because one of the things, it's all well and good to tell education institutions, hey, you need to have this program. That's great. Who are we going to get to teach it? And it's a little hard to pry somebody away from a very high-paying technology job to want to work in education. To get someone to do it was very difficult. My principal had me sitting there waiting. So it was really easy to get that program fired up at our school. The funding at a federal level, funding CT programs across the nation, cybersecurity is a big buzzword right now. It's popular. It's getting a lot of money to promote getting students excited and into working in IT. So getting the program up at our school was really easy. So now I get to teach that program, and I cover some classes in middle school as well. I do some electives. I use my 8th grade elective class as kind of like the lead into cyber to see what level of comfortability the kids have as well, and that's kind of fun.
So it's a new program. You're just a little bit over halfway through a 3-year program, I guess, if you're on year 2 right now. Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea how it's going so far?
I do and I don't. The pandemic has really affected, I don't have the kids in class, and usually you can gauge how a student is feeling about a topic way more better in person than how we are doing things right now. And hopefully we get back to a day where I'm able to do that, But if I were to just go by what I see, at least what I hear in terms of enthusiasm, the quality of work that I get back from the students when they perform something for me, whether it's do a lab or interaction with the other kids in class in our virtual sessions that we do, and all that, and the community feedback, because I do speak with a lot of the parents and guardians of my students, and everything has been positive. So from that perspective, I would say it is going well so far. We do have assessments and things that'll be built in, and as we go, we can kind of gauge from a much more empirical standpoint of how well that they're doing. But we've gotten nothing but positive feedback about the program so far. So we're going to continue to forge ahead. And if we do get negative feedback, it's up to me as a professional to say, all right, we got some negative feedback. Let's take action on it and say what's wrong with the program, what we might not be doing right, and change what we're doing or how we're doing it to better suit the student body and the community that we serve.
We've got more with Robert in a moment, but first a word about MacScan 3 from SecureMac. Recent numbers from Canalys say Mac sales grew 16% last year. Gartner says Mac sales were up over 22%, while IDC says they were up 29%. Okay, they don't agree on the numbers, but they all agree on one thing. Lots of new Macs in 2020, which means lots of new targets for bad guys. Protect your digital self with MacScan 3. MacScan 3 is a great defense against malicious software attacks aimed at your Mac. It's developed by SecureMac, trusted names in computer security and developers of exceptional security software for the Mac for over 20 years. MacScan 3 detects and removes Mac malware, catches keyloggers, removes tracking cookies, and provides full-range or targeted scanning, all without crowding up your hard drive or slowing down your machine. Sign up for a free 30-day trial today at securemac.com/MacScan. Then once you decide to buy for less. You can take a little off your subscription to MacScan 3 with offer code CHECKLIST. Try it first, watch it kick those tracking cookies to the curb. Then once you're ready to buy for less with offer code CHECKLIST at securemac.com/MacScan. And now more with CT Cybersecurity teacher Robert Speciale. So you told me when we were getting ready for you to come on, as part of your year 2 program, you just did a lab where the kids exploit an IIS web server 3 different ways: forced browsing, log file inspection, and anonymous FTP manipulation. I am not ashamed to say I vaguely know what one of those terms means. I'm wondering if you're dealing with kids who have never, gone under the hood. How do you go about first getting them to conceptualize what you're talking about, before you get to the nuts and bolts stuff? Or do you just start with the nuts and bolts stuff and trust that, once they're in it, they're going to get the concepts?
That is definitely where the magic has to try and happen. One of the things is that we have standards. The state of Nevada, where I teach, has cybersecurity standards. There's content that we have to cover. And those standards kind of spiral through the 3-year program. So when I say anonymous FTP manipulation as an example, in the first year, my first-year students explored, well, what the heck is FTP? It's a protocol. It does this. It does that, whatever the details might be at a very entry level. When we hit year 2, we take that and say, well, now you know what this is. Let's see what we can and can't do with it. And with the lens of ethical hacking, or with the lens of here's how someone could try and hack you if you don't do your settings right. So here's what the hack looks like, and then here's what the protection against that hack looks like. So we're building upon it's a spiral. It's kind of like a reverse pyramid where you start out with a little bit in year 1, and by the time you get to year 3, these concepts are revisited constantly, but we add a little more complexity as we go so that the students then kind of get the whole picture by the time we're done.
So when I was in high school, I stopped chemistry about halfway through. And the reason I stopped chemistry about halfway through is because I was never going to get chemistry. I just wasn't going to get it. And I tried to get people to explain it to me. And there was just something about it that just did not click. When I'm thinking about the kind of stuff that you're doing now, I think about people that I knew when I was a kid who could, I don't want to say they could just do this stuff because that minimizes, the work they did, but there was no high school class for how do you do cybersecurity. I mean, you kind of had to, if you wanted to poke around, first of all, you had to figure out how to get to the place where you would poke around, and then you had to figure out how to do the poking around. A number of things I'm wondering, but I guess really what one of them is there a natural aptitude for this kind of thing? I mean, is a cybersecurity pro somebody who's born or somebody who's made?
I believe, and of course some of this is just opinion, I believe anyone walking the planet can be a cybersecurity expert. However, it's whether that particular person has a desire to explore a field to the point of being successful at it where they are looked upon by their peers or others as experts. But I think saying the word expert is a little bit of a dangerous word in technology. I would kind of state that being an expert in technology is fleeting because everything changes so rapidly, right? The expert today will be out of date in 3 months. The analogy, and I just had, it's funny, I just had this discussion with some of my level 1 kids when we were talking about this. And I said, hey, during this pandemic, I built a brand new gaming computer. It is sitting right next to me right now. It is fantastic. It works great. It's the fastest computer I've ever built. It will be out of date in 3 months. A new CPU will come out. A new GPU will come out. A faster hard drive, or whatever it might be. And I think that analogy holds true for technology. You're only going to be as much of an expert as how constant does that person over the course of their professional life continue to educate themselves. It's constant learning. And I think that's true of not just technology, but a lot of other fields. And as an educator, I fully promote that all the time anyway. But especially with technology, you can get out of date so quick that, yes, you will have kids and students that, might be a little more like technology friendly and lean and like, love it a little bit more. But you put the work in, you can put your head down. I believe anybody can be successful at it. But calling them experts, I kind of hesitate with that, with just the way the technology has worked over the years, in my opinion, at least.
Now, you said your year 2 is malware basics, ethical hacking, and cyber forensics. I'm sure your kids are good kids. do you ever worry that you're accidentally training bad guys or training bad guys in training?
Just one of them. No, I'm kidding. So there's one kid I'm really, I got to keep an eye on him. Yeah, no. Yeah, that is always a worry. And a lot of people don't look at this this way sometimes. There's always a risk to anything you do with students in any class. Yeah. Whether it's mathematics, whether it's English, you expose them to a book that they might get some crazy ideas where they want to, take over Nakatomi Plaza on Christmas Eve or something like that, and you don't really want to, promote that so much, right? But in the end of the day, Ethics is part of our curriculum, and we do talk about that, and we say how you should use this for the forces of good. And it is a sticky question, but I try and take the approach of hey, I'll give you some tools, but if you use them for bad, that's going to be on you. And I do intend to get some guest speakers. The pandemic, and everything we've talked about, this whole thing, the pandemic has absolutely affected everything in strange and different ways. When we are able to get guest speakers, and I've had some people talk to us, via Google Meet and Zoom and all that. But I want to get some guest speakers from local law enforcement as well as some people I know in the gaming industry here in Las Vegas that work in internal investigations and talk about the ethics of that stuff. Real world people to give them examples of what happens when you do the bad and understand that that's probably not the direction you want to go. And of course, if I provide a good enough environment to show that intrinsic motivation, and intrinsic motivation is key to really to all this as well, and to know that, and promote that the positive aspects of having a career in cybersecurity or having a career in information technology and all that, then I hopefully won't have to worry about any of them joining the Legion of Doom.
If you're a regular listener to the checklist, we like to leave you with something you can do. I asked Rob where he would send people who wanted to start learning about cybersecurity on their own. He suggested the site hackthebox.eu. They focus on penetration testing. Some of their tools are free, some you have to pay for. He says it's a great place to start learning, and he's a teacher, so there you go. hackthebox.eu if you want to sharpen your skills. And thanks to Robert Speciale for joining us today. If you're looking for more security news and how-tos, the place to look is securemac.com/checklist. There you'll find notes for this show, for the last show, for all the shows that we've done, and you can listen to each show right there as well. It all starts in one place, securemac.com/checklist. If you like the checklist, please do us a couple of favors. Review this show wherever you found it, and tell other people about it, please. We'd appreciate it. If you have a question you would like to ask or a topic you would like to hear us hit, our email address is checklist@securemac.com. That address again is checklist@securemac.com. And if you can't remember that, please do remember this. You're listening to The Checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. And we'll talk to you next week.